My name is Brandee Sheldrake, and today I'm going to talk to you about being an install influencer. So, to give you a little background about how this topic all came to fruition, a couple of months ago, Alexandra Cephas from the Design Pop put out a call to action for the community to submit their installation plans so that she could host a webinar and we could talk about install docs. And as someone that really enjoys learning from other people and seeing what my counterparts are doing in other parts of the country and at other dealerships, of course, I submitted mine. And when she looked at the email that I sent her, she wrote back and she said, you're basically an installation influencer. These are beautiful. Is this something that you're passionate about? And I really had to laugh because installation docs, by no stretch of the imagination, are something that I am passionate about. What I am passionate about, however, is not having to design punch issues on projects and not getting calls at 8 a.m. on a Monday or 3 p.m. on a Saturday from a job site because my project manager doesn't know what I'm trying to convey on my installation plans. And of course, I am also very happy to not annoy my project manager and my install team. That is something that I am also passionate about. So when I was asked to be a speaker at CET Experience, of course, I thought I have to talk about installation plans and what it means to be an installation influencer. And so that is why we are here today. So what is an install influencer? Well, an influencer is an individual who holds considerable sway in specific industries, such as beauty, fashion, fitness, travel, and food. Oftentimes, they have large social media followings. They are people that add serious credibility to a brand. And congratulations, because you guys are all already influencer. You influence the way that people work. You have knowledge and credibility to the brands that you specify. If you've ever sat in a client meeting with salespeople, they will often, the client will often turn to you and ask you how you would solve their problems. Your experience and your knowledge of how people function in their spaces automatically gives you credibility and influence. So, how do we translate that into becoming an influencer when it comes to our installs as well? We're going to go through the who, what, where, when, why, and how. And we're going to tie it all back to how we create beautiful and wonderful client experiences. So, why am I uniquely qualified to talk about this? Well, I have been a designer for 20 years. I practically started when I was a baby. This is actually my kid who I started having to do spec checks at a very early age. I actually have two children. My daughter thinks that I design offices for boss baby. She's not totally wrong because a lot of the people that we work with sometimes are bossy and sometimes they act like babies. And if you ever watch that movie, what they, where they sit in their office cubicles is often what I am found at my desk drawing. I am new to being a dog mom. This is Archie. He spends a lot of his time wrapped up around my chair legs. And during COVID, my kids were little. They were 6 and 3. And so when they would get bored of doing their schoolwork and they would get tired of doing Zoom calls with their teacher, I would sometimes just print out a floor plan and have them draw furniture up. And then I would figure out how to put that on the actual floor plan. They thought that that was really cool, that they could draw something on a piece of paper and then I could turn around and then I could put that into a plan. Those kids now are 8 and 11. This is their first concert a couple months ago. We went and saw AJR. And we are a family that really likes to travel. We are not a Disney family, but we have taught our children all about roller coasters. We love roller coasters as a family. And when I am not on roller coasters and I am not designing furniture, I can be found in my craft room, which is also my home office, doing paper crafts. Sometimes my work life bleeds over into my paper crafting life, and I end up designing cards that look like furniture. And while I met my husband as a designer designing furniture, his claim to fame is that he often gets mistaken as like some people come up to him on a regular basis and say, has anybody ever told you you look like Val Kilmer? So because I have been doing this so long, and because I am also teaching my children all about furniture, I have actually been in a position where I have designed literally hundreds of thousands of spaces, which means I have put together a lot of installation documents. And I've gotten a lot of feedback from installers and from clients on their spaces. So I have the experience to talk about this specific topic. So any regular person, or what we're going to do when we put together install documents, we're going to ask who these documents are for. And the basic answer is that it's for furniture installers. But when you're an influencer, you're going to consider that it's actually for someone that maybe has never seen this plan before, probably hasn't seen this plan before, and doesn't know anything about this project. We're actually currently working with some new people that are installing furniture that actually don't have a lot of furniture industry experience. So this is also a team of people that not only hasn't seen the plan before, but is new to learning how to read a plan. So trying to help them along with these black and white plans that we're giving them. And what that means is that we're going to be putting a lot more detailed information on things. It means that we're going to have a monthly meeting with our operations lead to get feedback from them. And it also means admitting sometimes that you might have not put enough information on the last plan, and how can you get it right the next time? So what are we putting together? Furniture plans, basic. As an influencer, you're going to ask yourself, what else am I going to put on there? What matters? What other details can I provide that will be helpful and minimize any sort of questions in the field? So again, this is about somebody that may not have as much experience reading the furniture plan. They might not understand the differences between different brackets and what that symbol specifically means. A lot of our symbology that we have on these plans of a CR versus a CL, this is the WK, like nobody really understands that. And you might put a legend together, but sometimes that legend gets misplaced, or somebody doesn't even really know how to read that, or it's so small they can't read it. So really thinking about what this means for the installation team. What else is going to matter on that plan? It means putting together a component plan, putting together the panel and electrical plan, but also making sure that we're doing distinctive tagging and including renderings at times. So to give you an example, this is a basic install plan. This is generated by CET. Doesn't have a lot of additional detail. If you are somebody that is really comfortable reading plans, you can probably figure out that that's a lateral that's 2 high, 30 wide. But what does that L mean? Well, I know that it means laminate, but an installer may not know that. An FPL, what is that? What is an FPL? So some of these terms don't necessarily translate to a whole lot when you're an installation person that's on site on a project. Including a rendering so they can see what the end is going to look like. Making sure that for this specific one, we had 3 different size shelves, 30-inch, 48-inch, 60-inch. So showing where that is going to go in the space, how that relates to the actual overall plan when they get it in there. Including notes of like what that thing on the desk is. Well, it's a monitor arm. That's where the power module goes. Sometimes, as you know, we don't have actual symbols in CET. So adding these notes are going to be helpful. The guest chairs are not coming with this particular order. They're coming with a second order. It's all going to be installed at the same time, but when they go out there, they might be looking just at the first order of stuff and they're like, where's the guest chairs? Well, I don't want to get an email at the end of the day that the guest chairs are missing. Guest chairs aren't missing. They're just part of the second order that's coming next week. And then, of course, on this one, we had a special. Well, that special, I put the special number on there, obviously, and I added dimensions. So just adding those couple of extra notes, that CH02, that CH05 number, those are also things that we added. I added the lock core number. All of that translates back so it'll show up on the box when that furniture arrives. And then, of course, we have a component plan. Again, this is sort of the basic plan that is generated out of CET. Adding in some additional things with the panel plan here, showing where the fabric goes, where the laminate goes. For this particular one, this is a wall on the right-hand side that ends. So explaining to them that the best place to start is going to be start there with that wall start so that those other panels on the other side can line up. Other ways they might start on the back one or the left one, and that doesn't necessarily line up with the right wall. So really thinking about when they're in the field, where would it make sense for them to start? Again, this is the first time that they have seen this plan. This is the first time that they have really gotten into the weeds of it. So just sort of adding those little extra things to help them along is going to be helpful for those installers. And again, this is the component plan from before. It was really basic before, as you can see, doesn't have a lot of detail in it, but adding in here the panel mount, this particular manufacturer, the panel mount in panel and the freestanding in panel are actually the same symbology. One of them is 30 inches, one of them is 24 inches. It's really hard to tell on this plan which one is which. So calling that detail out. Again, where do I want my desktop module to go as opposed to just anywhere? And then, noting that we need a wire manager. The wire manager could technically go on the bridge. Like a lot of people would think that we would want it on the bridge, but this particular client, they want their monitor arm and they want there is not, by the way, a transaction top that goes on the front. So the monitor arm is not going to interfere with that. It is just on the side. But that monitor arm goes on the front of the work surface. The wire manager goes under that. Just calling out those additional details, calling out the dimension of the center to center panel line so that they know where those line up and those wall starts start. So as a regular designer, we're going to ask, where does this all go? The basic answer is the overall location in the space, right? But the influencer answer is going to be to include all the dimensions and all of the details, not just the overall location of where it goes in the building, but the overall dimensions of how that furniture relates to other furniture and other built-ins. What this means, details, 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 adding all of the details. Location, location, location. Adding all of the elevations, making sure that you're including all of the bracketry and adding those notes. Again, all of those dimensions and including additional electrical details. So to give you an example, this is a plan that I put together. We don't know exactly where they were going to inevitably hang this monitor in the space. We have two different types of power modules that we're putting in this table. So showing in big red bold letters where the HDMI versus where the all power modules go. If there was a little symbol that was on there, that would be a little bit more difficult to read. And again, making sure that that center table line is lined up with the TV. There's also this wire manager that comes with this table. So we want it under the table. This customer was very specific about not wanting any cords hanging down. So not only making sure that we have where we want it in the space, approximately like how far we want it from the wall, but how we want it lined up with the other elements that are in the space. This is that other plan that we had before with the overhead shelves. Putting in the height, putting in an elevation, adding in there the dimensions so that they can see what that all looks like in the space. And then brackets. So this this line, the bracketry is really interesting because there's two different screw depths depending on if you're putting in the connectors, the inline connectors versus the legs. So we have had issues in the past where they have used the wrong screws because they didn't necessarily know where the bracketry was going. So turning off your floor, flipping over the bottom of that furniture. This is also furniture where you can specify which leg you want where. So putting on there so that they can see this is how they're going to install their furniture. They're going to flip it over. They're going to put the legs on. They're going to screw them all in and they're going to plop it back up. Putting all of that information on there so that you can really think from the mind of an installer, what do I need to include here? And then, of course, we're always going to provide a suggested electrical plan for the architect and the customer at the beginning of a project before it even goes to order. But we're also going to include very detailed electrical components that are going to be installed. So this electrical color legend is something that will be generated usually by your manufacturer. You can, get different symbols. This one's auto-generated. You can also create your own. But it shows the symbol color and how that relates to the 3D plan, shows how the 2D symbols relate to that plan. And then I have taken this on Bluebeam and I have also added the color coding so that it relates back to that, so that they can see it not only in 3D view, which can be a little bit difficult to read, I think, at times, but also how that looks in plan view. And of course, we have also included a black and white copy. Now, the question might come up, why do I have to do this in Bluebeam? Well, the challenge right now is that there is not any transparency available to be able to change the transparency in CET when you are in Paperspace. If you would like to see that changed, right here on configura.com/roadmap, you can go into commercial interiors, and in the upper right-hand corner, you can submit your idea. I will wait if you guys would like to all go ahead and just submit your idea to have transparency included in Paperspace so that we can stop using Bluebeam as much. You can submit your ideas, and then that gets back to the programmers. So when is the install? That's the basic answer. The influence answer is when the installers are looking at this, what will be confusing? When they are looking at these plans, what is missing? What that means, it means all those additional details. It also means including our cut sheets. Everybody calls it something different. Cut sheets, validations sheets, spec packages, design packages, including some of those with our installation plans so they can see what the intent is for the customer. And maybe it also means including instructions from the manufacturer's website or pictures from the manufacturer's website so they can understand the intent of a product. So this was a really basic install. This is what was generated out of CET. This manufacturer doesn't include any part numbers or anything on their product. So this is what is auto-generated. And part of my job to be here is to help normalize that. One, for manufacturers, hopefully, we need a little bit more information. But for designers, it's okay if it's not there. It's our job to go in and add it. So there's actually two different size of desks in this, or tables in this situation. Putting in there the rendering. If these chairs show up in blue, then the installers are going to see that they're not in the right color, right? They're looking at the rendering. Where do I want my wire manager to go? Including that the desktop power module, it doesn't go on one of the little tables. It actually goes on this credenza. And then also including, I'm thinking about how this is the same client that is very nervous about wire management. I included these Velcro wire managers and including an image of that because that is a very small package that could very easily get lost. Including that on there so that they see the intention is to take the wire from the power module, put it down the back of that credenza so that you can't see the wire managers. And of course, I always include dimensions for all of this stuff. I like to include dimensions for several reasons. One, more often than not, a client might not necessarily read all the individual items that you include on your bill of materials. But if you have dimensions on the plan and they come back and they say, I didn't know that I was getting a 42-inch desk and a 48-inch desk, you have backup to come back later and say, actually, like we've included those dimensions there. Of course, we'll correct the situation or whatever. But then there's no mystery. And there's also no mystery of how big that aisleway was supposed to be or how big that credenza was going to be, because some people just don't understand the concept of space. If you put dimensions on there and they look at that and they don't necessarily understand what a 20 by 36-inch feels like in the space, they might be more inclined to get out their tape measure and see what that looks like before they order it to make sure that they don't want a 72-inch one. Again, basic floor plan, what the 2-pack looks like. Again, the same manufacturer that doesn't have any sort of part numbers on any other product, making that a little bit bigger. So one of the things that I have found from my installers and talking with them, nobody's really carrying a scale on the job site. So if you take that plan and at a very minimum, you're making it, a 1/4 inch or an 1/8 inch or whatever it is that you're doing, but you're blowing that plan up so that when they print it, it takes up the full space. If you have all of the dimensions and all of the information that you need on there of where this is going to be placed in the space, they never have to have it actually to scale. Nobody's getting out of scale and measuring this. Now, you should double check with your installer on that, but my experience has been the bigger the better. It doesn't really matter the specific scale. In this instance, I wanted these workstations installed to the right of the window. It didn't matter where it was in the space. That was the intention. I included on here the desktop screen. We need to make sure that the wire manager is under the desk. The power module is cool. All of this goes on like one little desk, right? But showing on the bottom there how that wire manager connects into the beam, showing that I need the power module that's on the desk, showing how that power cord interlinks into the mesh wire manager. And then also making a note that the screens need to be raised so that the desk and the screen don't interfere with the cable management tray and the beam system. This is a very small installation, but all of these details are going to make it matter. This was a client, this was our first experience with them. They have multiple locations in our state, multiple locations throughout the country. And so when we went back and we asked them, like, what was their challenges with their previous dealer, it was that some of these details were overlooked. And so we wanted to make sure that we got it right. Why are we doing this? Well, the basic answer is that the installer needs plans. Really, the installer needs very accurate plans. And at the end of the day, it's about the client. It's about the client having a positive experience with us. This is literally our last opportunity to make sure that the client has a positive experience with our team and with our organization. This is another installation project that we worked on. They hardly ordered anything for their offices in this situation, but we wanted to make sure that their existing furniture that they were bringing over was coordinated with the placement of the new marker boards that they got. So in 3 months, 6 months, 3 years, 10 years, whatever it is that they come back, they remember that we cared enough about the placement of that marker board. We didn't just slap it on the wall and hope that their furniture that they're bringing over works with it. We made sure that that marker board and that placement of the furniture that we were bringing new to the site was going to work with their existing furniture. So how do we do all of this? Well, we kind of have to be the Mary Poppins. The basic answer really is that we're putting together furniture plans and notes and that the installer can take it from there. But as an install influencer, we are predicting the future. We are figuring out what questions are going to come up during install. And what do I mean by Mary Poppins? Well, Mary Poppins, or sometimes a mom, is going to have in her purse or her bag safety pins and band-aids and snacks and water and toys and wet wipes and a charger. And she probably is going to have a tape measure because she's a designer, and she might even have a fork. She's going to have a lot of those things in her back pockets, predicting the future, thinking about what is going to be needed down the road. So one of the other things that I do is that I am a cheerleading coach for 7 to 12-year-olds, which is a little bit intense and crazy. But it means that I have to have everything from Band-Aids to bobby pins to hair ties to face wipes to Kleenexes to all of the stuff in my bag at the field when things go wrong. I have extra shoelaces. I have extra socks. I have all of these things. I am trying to predict the future so that everything can run smoothly. I have had to Band-Aid shirts together because the zipper broke on them. Like, those are some of the things that you just have to have essentially that tool belt and think about what the tool belt is that these people need when they get there. What are all of those questions that are going to come up? And what this means is, again, means adding dimensions, making sure that our scale is readable, adding in color coding, including call outs, And also taking the time to do individual door hangers, because let's be honest, if you have 25 offices, it is not one team that is doing the offices from one end of the building to the other. They are all working individually, and they don't need to be going out looking at one big plan. They need individual door plans for every single room, which does take time, but it makes the installation go actually a lot quicker. So this is a recent project that we put together. It's actually just a basic mock-up. And we put together the plan. There's actually things that, there's bracketry that is on this. There's pick lists and things that are on this that are not included on this. So really just thinking about what additional details we need to include. I always like to include additional dimensions. I always include dimensions on everything because when you turn off, when you get this ready for a client and you turn off all of the tagging so that the layout is really clean, the client doesn't know how big the desk is. So I always like to include those dimensions on a different layer so that those dimensions are on all the client plans from the very beginning so they can see exactly what size desk they're getting. If I'm not in the room when they're having a conversation with the salesperson, I don't want my salesperson having to text me and be like, hey, how big is this desk? All of the information is right there, whether I am able to pull up my CET plan or not, whether those layers are on or not. I'm not adding these when I do my installation docs. They're added from the beginning. Taking those items though that are on my pick list, taking the extra time just to add those extra bracketries in. This particular bracket, thinking about this from just a stability standpoint, that bracket ties that storage cabinet into the panel. There is not a symbol for that. Putting that bracketry on there where it goes. When I put my installation plan together, I will also make a note that says bracket this, this is the part number, this bracket ties this storage cabinet into this panel because I have literally shown up at job sites where that note wasn't included and the brackets and the stiffeners and all these other parts are just laying around like an extra bag of IKEA parts that's laying around your house when you get done putting the bookcase together. And the installers are like, well, we didn't know where this goes. Well, how would you be able to look at this and know exactly where the external stiffener is? How would you know where that bracket goes? Especially if you don't have experience with this product or experience with this furniture, or I'm not calling that information out. When we talk about scale, I never do anything smaller than a 1/4 inch scale. I assume that most of the time they're going to be printing these on an 11 by 17 sheet of paper. 1/4 inch is okay. That's the bare minimum. 3/8 inch is a little bit better. The best is, in my opinion, to make it as big as possible. Of course, confirm this with your installer. As big as possible, and don't worry about the scale. You can do this by just, instead of changing the shape in paper space, you change the scale and you can just drag it and make it bigger. Again, adding those additional notes, adding where the external stiffener goes, showing that the wire management goes behind the external stiffener. Where do those two flat brackets go? Adding that I want the center marker board on the center of the wall. Every single one of these rooms has a different center of the wall because of where it lines up with the window, whether it goes all the way to the window or not. And then thinking about those additional details and making sure that the desk is programmed so that it doesn't hit the top of the box mobile file. Again, showing that this is a left-hand wardrobe. We had an entire space that was installed. They were handed credenzas. The installers installed them backwards. They put the drawers under the height adjustable desk. Again, these are new installers. They didn't have a rendering to go off of. We didn't put the part number on there. So showing, hey, the wardrobe is on the left. They can open this. They don't even necessarily have to look at the part number, but they can open this and they can see that the wardrobe is on the left and that the storage, the doors and the drawers are on the right, and figure out that this is going to be in a left-hand application because this is a project that has left hands and right hands throughout the whole space. And again, figuring out how to put these, take the time, making the time to put together these documents showing the door hangers for each space. These offices are all handed. So showing where it is, just a little snippet of where it is on the plan, showing where it is in the space, adding all of those notes. Once you get a couple of them going, you can just copy paste, copy paste, copy paste, and change all of those notes. And it actually doesn't take as much time. So how do we do all of this? Well, the basic answer is that we do it in CET. But if you're an influencer, which you are, the real answer is whatever best gets the point across. This means not only using CET, but also having an installation kickoff meeting, doing a site visit, also using other tools like Bluebeam and Adobe as needed. So how do we bring it all together? I am a big advocate, huge advocate for in Paperspace naming all of your pages. You can move them around, you can copy and paste them, but making sure that you do that from the very beginning when you're putting together your package. I think everybody needs to be taking the time to do this. I also am a big proponent, just so you know, of naming your block and saving things as favorites. Those are my 3 favorite CET tips for the day. And within categorization, I make sure that I categorize all my different things. You can see here, I've got DIMS workstation, I've got install DIMS, I've got tag furniture, special power. I always do those in capital. Then you can click things off and on when you're in Paperspace. So I use the categorization category. I will get into CET and show you how this works. And then, of course, visibility settings. The interesting thing about visibility settings is it really does matter by manufacturer, and you really do have to go and sort of and customize those and filter those and different things like that. And then I really am a big fan of the black and white filter to turn colors from model space on and off in Paperspace. I love those legends that our manufacturers put together from us, the automatic ones that show the panel keys and the electrical legends. And then again, I rely a lot on the Bluebeam tool chest because right now we don't have the ability in Paperspace in CET to make those things transparent. If you would like to have that changed, again, I will wait. I would really love us to have the ability to be able to make those colors transparent when we are in Paperspace. So getting into CET and showing what that looks like. So within my manufacturer, I've obviously created my electrical color legend and my my panel plan. And on here, I have different notes. So I have my tag notes. Of course, this is a block. I love my blocks. I have my tag notes. I right click, you go into categorize, and you can see I have labeled this as a tag note. I also have, let's see, the special. Again, categorize. I have this on special. And throughout here, I also have dimensions. I've added in just little helpful hints. Fabric, fabric, laminate, laminate. Is it necessary? No. Is it helpful? Yeah, kind of is. So getting into Paperspace, this is my suggested electrical plan. Going into, let's see, we'll go into, let's see, this one maybe? Yeah. So I've got my panel plan and I am going to, did it do it? No, it didn't do it. Let's see. Move this. So I'm not going to necessarily take the time to do this now, but instead of doing the whole plan, I will take and just pull in the panels that are associated with this individual area. So I would just show the U1 and the T1 and the H3 and the M3 and the L3 and the N3. I would just show those as opposed to every single panel that is on the entire plan so that they don't have to do it. But they're going to look at this and they're going to see all these different panels helping them decipher like, okay, this is a 42 high, this is a 50 high. using real words as opposed to just symbols, laminate, fabric. That's just going to help them get there faster. And then within here, if I go into my visibility settings and then I go into filter, you can see I have my dims turned on and off. So these are just regular dimensions. Those are my work surface dimensions. My electrical, I obviously have the electrical turned on. The elevation, this is the elevation, the code, and then the tag furniture. So I have those things turned off. So once I do that, how do I get these in color? That's a big question. I didn't know for a long time. So once you add your black and white. So, we've obviously added the black and white here. And then you go into this little black and white button, and up here there's a filter category. And the filter category is on a different screen. Here we go. So on that filter category, you can turn on or off. And this is backwards because you turn on and it is black and white. But if you turn it off, then it shows up in color. So I have done that with the installation dimensions. And so I also have included the laminate and fabric as my installation dimensions. Again, I don't think anything's on here. Oh, this is just turning it gray versus turning it black and white. So you can see, like, you can turn different things. I don't have the dimensions even turned on this plan, so it's not gonna turn them on here. It just changes the color. And that's how you get the color coding in there. And again, going into Bluebeam, I have a tool chest set up in Bluebeam that you can take this tool chest and you can actually export it and share it among your team member, or among your team. So if you have specific color codes, as we do, branded colors, or I like to have just the colors of the rainbow. But I also have on here arrows and shapes. These are our branded colors, and then these are colors of the rainbows. This helps me when I'm doing my spec checks or when I'm doing callouts or when I'm having client meetings. But if you wanted to do a branded thing, you can actually save that tool chest and then you can load it up among various different users. But again, if you would like to not have to use Bluebeam, you can add in your idea and you can submit it to configura.com/roadmap. Commercial interiors, and then in the upper right-hand corner, you can submit your idea and you can ask them to add transparency to Paperspace so that we can make those colors transparent. So in summary, what do we do? Well, people think that we put furniture together with pretty colors, right? They think that's all we do. Pretty colors all day long. We just get to select fabrics. Oh, your job is fun. What we actually do is a lot more complicated than that. We take a whole bunch of boxes of furniture that are in a warehouse and we magically turn it into this. Thank you.